Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. How you guys doing? It has been a wild weekend out there. Pretty wild weekend. Lots of things started exploding again over inside of Iran. And then we had Houthis fire ballistic missile over inside Israel, impacting right outside the Ben Gvir airport. Pants check. Dude, you're going to hit me with a pants check first thing off in the morning, for the love of God, man. Always Last in Line came out, gifting out a Speak the Truth membership. And Patrick Loudon, for some reason, it continues to tell me that you're a new True supporter, even though you've been a True supporter for as long as I can freaking remember. As we wait on a couple more people to get in here, just some like fun facts. White House has been on like a trolling kick this entire weekend. I will come in and I'll check the news from time to time and see things that just kind of like make me laugh. May the 4th, oddly enough, U.S. Army Pacific ended up putting out this. So at least the U.S. Army's got some good jokes now that are coming in. Yeah, I hope you guys had like a good 4th of July weekend. The White House always put out on May the 4th, they put out this. Donald Trump with a freaking lightsaber. It's almost like the current administration is on there. And I can think of about one autistic human being that works up there that they'd want to go over. Greta Thunberg is back in the news, and I don't even... The voyage? I don't even want to... I mean, this blows my mind, claiming to be on the ship that ended up getting attacked. Lots of things came out with that merchant vessel from the Freedom Flotilla, if you guys remember that from last week. I'm trying to remember, floating off the coast of Malta in international waters. They're saying that it doesn't even have like a flagged country right now, or it's having problems getting flagged country. Incog Faraday sending in 5 more Speak the Truth memberships. Thanks, brother. So yeah, the Freedom Flotilla, it's kind of a problem. And they have yet to release. What I ended up discovering after we did the stream last week was I actually went over to the Freedom Flotilla's Twitter page and looking up all sorts of different information. And you guys know from like last week, in case you forgot, they're the ones that released these pictures claiming that off the coast of Malta, which is very, very far away from Israel, and Israel has no reason to even go after this sucker, that it got struck by 2 drones. And then it released some deck cam footage, right, showing fires and things like that afterwards. And then it dawned on me, well, if they have the deck cam footage of the fires, why don't they have deck cam footage of the drones actually striking it? And then that reminded me again about the damage and everything that I talked about, to where this doesn't look like an actual drone strike. The burn marks that are on the deck, plus like the lack of debris from the drone, everything else, it definitely looks like a placed low-grade munition. And so that got me thinking that if they are going to be doing this, if they're going to have placed low-grade munitions on a deck, explosives, operating in international water on a group that has claimed that they're going to go break the blockade over inside of Gaza to deliver humanitarian aid. To me, it kind of sounds like they had explosive devices on this boat. This is just me. This is what I think. This is my expert opinion when it comes to explosives. That they had 2 placed explosive charges on this boat, at least, and they ended up detonating. Now, what if it was just a mistake? Because they have provided no proof, 0, that a drone actually struck this. They actually provided evidence to the contrary, in my opinion. And nowhere in this entire thing, to me, does this scream drone strike. To me, this screams, whoops, some shit went off on our deck, and now we're going to make excuses. Because if they have the deck cameras that are up here on the top, which you can see them, they're here. They didn't release that footage. I wonder why, because it likely doesn't show it. So what I'm saying, yeah, the X feed was having issues this morning. I think I need to go redo it, so I'm not dual streaming on X this morning, so I apologize. I see your comment down there. But listen, like the issue to me is that you have a vessel that claimed it was going to go break the blockade going into Israel, and it has clearly had explosive devices on board. They appear to be placed explosive munitions, and so at a minimum, I would think that these munitions accidentally went off. But also, it's possible that they could have set them off themselves. That's what it would appear to be at this moment in time. Otherwise, they would release evidence of the Israeli drone striking their ship, right? Right? Why don't they release the video footage of that? Well, it's because it doesn't exist. And I think the international community is going to be hard-pressed not to actually go over there and arrest everybody on board and to actually search the ship. Problem is, it's been a couple days since, and they could have already thrown everything overboard. But a thorough investigation needs to be done as to what this is. And Matt's great freaking opinion here. Now, over in Iran, we're going to shift focus over to Iran real quick. Morning, Patriots. Morning, 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 everybody. BW, what's up? Sound like somebody messed up and now they're trying to make excuses. Correct. That's what I think. I say there's a strong possibility that they had explosive devices on that ship and they could have been trying to deliver them to Hamas. Seems to me like they might be funding international terrorism or providing direct material support. Seems to me like they have explosive devices that they're not supposed to have. Oh my goodness. John Kent, just like that cartel interview, more PSYOP. Oh, brother, we're going to be going over a PSYOP here, and it has to do with HR 867 here in a little bit. And I do believe that it's foreign influence that's going out and pushing this, and everybody fell for it this weekend. Charlie Kirk fell for it. Looks like Alex Jones this morning fell for it. I tried to warn Alex, man. I was like, yo, that's a deep state fake, man. That's a deep fake, bro. And people were like, you don't know what you're talking about. And then I just posted the links to everything. I was like, you're all retarded. Like, y'all need to figure this out. But let's go over to Iran real quick. Let's talk about Iran, because Iran had several things exploding this weekend. Now, on Friday night, I believe it was Friday night, I ended up posting over on X, and I said, listen, what it appears to be, no, I'm sorry, it was Saturday night. I said what it appears to be by all of these different videos and stuff coming out of, we've got reports of power plants on fire and all of this other crap going on over inside of Iran. The frogs are still gay. Hey, the frogs were gay, man. He figured it out. Calm down. After all of these reports started coming out of more things being set on fire over in Tehran and over in, I'm trying to remember the name of it. I'm going to have to pull up the map to remember the name of it. But another city that has like a nuclear site of these different electric facilities and things like that were either exploding or catching fire, they ended up having a blackout. Like social media again, all that crap ended up blacking out for everybody over inside of Iran. And we barely got anything out of there. The only thing new following that evening that I really got out of there, minus just some word tweets that were on there. Why is your super chat blocked? Alleyway, I didn't block your super chat. There might be a word in there, maybe, that you put. So there's certain words that we have that are blocked. Like, I don't know, like, I think Zionist might be blocked and a couple other things. I don't know. Natanz, thank you, Polish drunk. Natanz, yes, thank you. Natanz. So yeah, we have certain words like that blocked just to keep idiots out. So if you tried to tweet something like that, Alleyway, or not tweet, if you tried to freaking super chat a word like that, it may have been blocked automatically, or it could be something on YouTube. But yeah, I don't block super chats. That's not something I do. I don't really care. I do block trolls from time to time. Other than that, I don't do that. So I'm sorry that happened to you. Yeah, Natanz, Arabic for boom, correct. So we had all these things going on, and then over inside of Iran, we ended up having like this social media blackout type deal. The only thing that I've actually seen, because what I try to do is I try to source things directly from the source before people end up putting it out there. So I'm constantly have like a pulse on all this stuff that's happening over inside of Iran or these other countries, and I'm constantly searching and checking, and I have different feeds set up so that I can pull those different things so that I can see it when it happens and then wait for some sort of media source to come out and state something on it. All of that went dark, like immediately following these like explosions and shit over inside of Iran. And then people started saying, okay, well, it's a media blackout. Okay, cool. So everybody's seeing the same thing as me. So I'm comfortable in saying that. What I think is actually happening with all of this stuff, and it to me, the cards seem to align. If you watch this channel, you're well aware that Iran and the Houthis and Russia are all directly linked to each other. And so all of this stuff is coming to a head. And immediately following all of this, we end up getting notification that Israel ends up getting smashed with a freaking ballistic missile. Pretty interesting. And we're going to go over that here in just a second as well. So the ballistic missile ends up flying out of Yemen and smashing down into Israel, right like 300 plus meters outside of Ben Gvir airport. Like it came very dang close to smashing it into the airport and being a huge freaking issue. Zenith Dawn said his worked. Fred, what would be the warning signs of an incoming USA attack on Iran? Brother, you are currently seeing them. To me, the warning signs of the incoming US attack on Iran are this right here. All of these things that are coming up followed by the media blackout. So initially we ended up seeing the port exploding, right? That big port detonation that ended up happening over inside of Iran. And then we ended up seeing more of these that were taking place in and around the country. And then we ended up seeing a couple more of these set off this weekend, followed by a media blackout. Why? Because I think it was a much more large scale and Iran didn't want that sucker to get reported. People are overreacting with HR 867. Brother, you are correct, and we're going to go over that here in a bit. It's so stupid, it's not even funny. It's literally U.S. law, and 867 is an amendment to that law that just basically, instead of foreign countries, it adds international organizations. So it would cover things like BRICS, right? Anyways, so that's the warning sign. And what I ended up tweeting out, and people are like, dude, you can't make that statement. You don't know what you're talking about. What my opinion is on what I think is actually happening is we are having, how do I want to say this? We are having active little sleeper cells over inside the country that are going around and basically taking out the main power supply to some of these different military facilities or nuclear facilities or any of those different types of facilities. Then it would default to a system of backup generators. Those backup generators have a certain amount of fuel supply that would be going to them. They're going to be able to run for a predetermined amount of time, supplying, like critical power to everything else and blah, 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 blah. Once those expire, then we can start effectively draining battery systems and everything else and counting on all that going down. Why? Because those generators are going to rely on fuel. And if you have these little organizations over there that are going after these different fuel supplies and these different fuel routes, all of a sudden those backup gens are completely and totally irrelevant. Now, they should have some more on site for that, like critical infrastructure, right? Like things like those nuke facilities and things like that ought to have like some backup freaking supplies. But other than that, it's all going to drain. And so I ended up saying that this attack is pretty much imminent now, that it's going to go down and it's going to happen. And in my opinion, we ended up getting confirmation on it in several different ways that it's going to end up going down. Number one, we had Israel pass and say that they are ready for expanded operations inside the Gaza Strip, activation of the 40,000 reserve troops, 40,000 plus reserves to go into Gaza. I reported you guys last week that over inside of Gaza, down inside of the town of Rafah, it looks like they have those little camps that are set up inside of Rafah that the IDF has been clearing out so that they can process all of these Gazans as they begin to push and clear out. That way we don't have the same problem that we had last time with Hamas moving the hostages among the civilians, storing them inside people's apartments, just walking around with them, moving them through tunnels, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This way everybody gets cleared and Israel's able to do a systematic clearance. Any of the civilians can move down into the controlled area. There they can get processed out for like export out to other countries or however you want to say it. But I digress. Let's go back to Iran and why I think that this attack on them is imminent, because this also came out from Iran this weekend. This is over in Palestine Square, I forget what the hell they officially call it, reportedly where they ended up hanging this up on the wall. Like I said, media blackouts minus things like this. So stuff like this comes out. For those of you that don't know what you're looking at, you're essentially looking at a red alert map over Israel. And somebody in the comment section, please remind me what the name of this stupid dagger sword thing is that they ended up making with the arrangement of these little freaking plots on the map and hanging up over there. Yeah, right. So this ended up coming out last night, local time here in the United States of America. And so stuff like this, yep, they've got no problem posting it, plus that ballistic missile, which we all know Iran is basically supplying and controlling the Houthis with intelligence and everything else. And so I think that this information right here that is up on your screen, plus the ballistic missile attack, plus the fact that they did the media blackout, plus everything else, when Iran's getting more and more poopy, that the U.S. is about to bomb Iran. Because again, the moment I told you, the moment Israel is ready to go start clearing the Gaza Strip, this is going to be the reaction from Iran. Because they know that Israel is going to push all of the Gazans down into that little frickin' controlled area, which is formerly known as the city of Rafah. They're going to go move them into Rafah, and they're going to start screening them for export. And so Hamas is about to be wiped out. And that is a major freaking funding. Like, Iran has put a lot of money into Hamas. And so they're about to be wiped out. So Iran's, national policy, they're going to have to go after Israel. Well, here it is. They're already threatening Israel the moment that information ends up coming out. And then we have the Houthi ballistic missile attack that ended up taking place over outside the Ben Gvir airport. So let's get that up on the screen. Oh, here's another freaking fun image of electrical plant, on fire. There's more of them that are out there floating around before everything ended up getting shut off. But that ballistic missile ended up coming in and impacting, like I said, about 350 meters. Hold on, I got a better graphic up here. Grab this graphic for you to show you guys where it was at before I put it up there. Ended up impacting about 350 meters from the main airport. And here, like you can see, it's right out here in the middle of this open field. So here's the airport. Here is the field at which the ballistic missile ended up impacting. It could have came just a little bit further. I've never been there, but I would assume that these, you've got terminals and all sorts of other crap that ends up pushing people out. So it was damn close. Damn close to striking freaking people. And you guys can see the hole in the ground right there, and we're going to go over that. But I want to show you guys how close this is. Yeah, 350 is damn close when you start considering that it was fired from 2,000 kilometers away. It's almost, if you guys remember, it is almost all the way over at like the very end of like their ballistic missile capability. So we'll talk about that. Miss Haskell, this is Alleyway. Good morning. Please check your messages for me. For some reason, I can no longer use my super chat. Well, that's super frustrating. Alleyway, I'm assuming you mean messages over on X. All right, Alleyway, I see you in there. I will read that here following the stream, and we'll get into that. I'll get back to you after that. Okay, you have my promise. I will look at that message, and I will give it a read. So thank you. That's really frustrating that it doesn't let you do that. No idea why it would be that way. So let's take a look at the damage on the ground. Let me get this up on the screen for you guys. Let's run it. That is a pretty deep crater. That is a very, very deep crater. And then we can go and we can look at like the warhead that got fired over there and everything else and how much it actually carries and what it does and on and on and on. I don't really think it's that freaking important to get after it, though. I think it's pretty obvious that if this ended up striking about 300 meters to the north, that it would have taken out a lot of people. So kind of odd to me that we have everything lighting off over inside of Iran. Then we have that take place, right? Then we have that take place following the social media blackout. And then yesterday, Scott Kyle coming in gifting out 5 Speak the Truth memberships. Greatly appreciate you, my friend. And Thumper33, I had my super chats do that before. It randomly fixed itself later. Yeah, it's either a glitch in the system or this channel is getting attacked, to be perfectly honest with you. I've noticed it a lot and I just write it out. I don't really care. I ended up noticing a vast increase in the sex bots over inside of the chat, not just here on YouTube, but also over on my X account. It's kind of funny how people do that. And they're just like, I think if I just pay for a bunch of bots, then I'll be able to shut his channel down or we can like cyber attack, blah, blah, blah. Nah, it doesn't. Don't worry about it. I'm still here. So thank you. All right. So this is over at the Ben Gvir Airport. And this is a view of where that sucker ended up. That's how close it was.
איזה מטורף. עכשיו בנתב"ג. איזה מטורף.
Pretty wild. I've got another view of that sucker here as well. Give me 1 second. Obviously, that is looking all the way across the airfield. Although you guys, that's why I kind of wanted to show you the overhead so you kind of understood of how flipping close that thing was when it ended up coming in. Here's another view of that after it already impacted. Obviously, the Houthis didn't give a warning for anybody to evac and nobody set up freaking cameras on tripods waiting for it to happen. Ben Gurion Airport, not Ben Gvir. Yeah, Ben Gurion. Thank you. Gosh, it's Monday, man. It's Monday. It's Monday. That's all I can say. Ben Gurion. It's Monday.
Yo!
Thank you, Hill.
Yo!
Seal Rock, Oregon. I love it, baby. I love seeing it in there. Von Gvir Airport. Oh my goodness. Can we just agree we all know it's the only international airport in existence over there? Can we just all agree to that real quick? It's Monday, man. I don't have time for all that. Like, I'm really sorry. Oh my goodness. All right. So yeah, let's keep it rolling. All right, so as you guys can see, impacted very, very close. Now, the other very interesting thing that ended up coming out of there, again, here's your schematic of where it ended up impacting and going down on the ground, damn close to the freaking airport. The next interesting thing about this is the announcement that ended up coming out from the Houthis. All right, they ended up announcing an aerial blockade on Israel immediately following that. So not only do we have Iran having things popping off, not only do we have a social media blackout in Iran, not only do we have Iran threatening to strike Israel now that Israel is stating or past the expanded operations over inside Gaza, activation of reserve troops and all that other crap. Not only do we have all of that, plus a ballistic missile attack by the Houthis that almost impacted the airport, then we have the Houthis come out and try to enact an aerial blockade. And all of this stuff ended up going down this weekend while you guys were sleeping, hanging out with your families, enjoying yourselves, doing whatever it is you were doing. All of this stuff ended up happening. Now, I say this because I do believe that this airstrike is pretty much imminent. And when we look at today's date, it is May the 5th. May the 5th. So May 5th, ladies and gentlemen, again, is the 60 days past deadline from when Trump ended up sending out that letter. And there's a lot of people to the Ayatollah. So Trump gave the Ayatollah 60 days to basically, work with us and get the deal done for the freaking nuclear arrangement. Like, Iran, you cannot be manufacturing enriched uranium. You can't do it. Like, you're not allowed. And they have refused to comply up to this point. They are in non-compliance with the NPT as far as I'm concerned. They have continued to freaking fund the Houthis. They have continued to encourage them, despite them claiming online, which, by the way, they are claiming online that they had nothing to do with this strike. All right. So Iran's claiming that they had nothing to do with this strike. There's no way they provided any sort of help with targeting of the freaking airport. And now the Houthis want to go out and claim that they are not going to, or the Houthis are going to claim that they're not going to allow any aircraft in or out of Israel. They warned civilian aircraft to avoid the area. That is a direct threat to civilian aircraft. They do not even want civilian aircraft flying in and out of Israel. It calls upon all international airlines to take into consideration the contents of the statement from the moment of its announcement and published, and to cancel all scheduled flights to the airports of the criminal enemy to preserve the safety of the aircraft and their agents. Now, you can say that they are acting with due diligence in accordance with international law to make sure that also the civilians are aware that they're about to attack this country. But let's go over and let's check out the actual impacts on flight radar and let's see what's happening. Do you think the international community gives two shits about the Houthis and flying in or out of that airport? No, they don't. And for those of you arguing over the name of it, Tel Aviv Ben Gurion International Airport, probably pronounce it all the way wrong, but there it is for you. And here you can see aircraft coming in and out and flying all over the dang place. There you go. Even little like podunk suckers flying in and out of there. Pretty interesting. So they're still going strong. They don't care. This guy just came out of there not that long ago. Airport's still up and running. It's flying just fine, right? We can go over, we can take a look at Iran, and we can check out the airspace over Iran and see how that's doing. Wouldn't you know it? A lot of people are not really avoiding Yemen. How is that even freaking possible? Bro, you're just getting it from Cairo to Aden. Okay, well, I guess that makes sense. I personally would have taken a longer route around there, but yeah, you do you, boo-boo. All right, let's go check out Iran and see how they're holding up. As you can see, aircraft are flying just fine in and out of Iran. I don't see any significant indicators at this moment in time that they are about to be under attack. They have been under attack. They're worried about it, or that anything's exploding over there when we go take a look at it. So as of right now, it would appear that there is, it's basically not happening. Dang it, why did I click that? I am so stupid every single time I end up doing that. So everybody calm down on there. All right, everybody calm down. So we've got expanded operations in Gaza, all of this stuff. It is very, very likely that it's all going down. Now, I want to shift your guys' focus real quick over to Ukraine, because a lot of people, for some reason, think that Ukraine is not going to be getting any support from the United States of America. Everybody was really quick to go and point out the fact that, what was it? That, man, I'm already forgetting his name. Zelensky had requested, a purchase of Patriot missile systems in order to better defend Ukraine. Obviously, then we saw all of that stuff that ended up coming out last week that we reported on. We talked about how Zelensky had basically said that Putin should be concerned about holding the Victory Day parade on the 9th, and like he's got basically good reason to be concerned about it. Over the weekend as well, we ended up having some massive drone attacks that ended up taking place. Let me put this up on the screen. These actually came in. These actually got sent to me by Nate Vance. So big shout out to frickin' Nady. I'm sure he's going to be up over in the frickin' chat today, up on video and talking with us about this, because I'm actually kind of curious his take on a lot of this when it comes to exactly why this was going down. Let me get this up. Let me see if this is the right one. Yeah, here we go. So we ended up having a massive attack on Crimea and on like the freaking sea fleets and everything else that were down there. Israel ended up launching, or not Israel, Ukraine ended up launching a buttload of drones, buttload of attacks and everything like that up over on Russian controlled territory. A lot of people are speculating, saying that the reason this is taking place is because they want, how do I want to say this? A lot of people are speculating that the reason this is taking place is to essentially soak up a lot of the Russian aerial defense assets that are in place, and that these attacks are basically going to continue until the 9th. So we're pulling all of their crap out of the frickin' sky, all their aerial defense assets, in order to make it happen. Well, what just got put out yesterday was that Ukraine is going to end up receiving Patriot. It didn't say whether it's one system or several or anything like that, but basically that they're ones that are going from Israel. They're getting refurbished and sent over to Ukraine. Now, a lot of you guys might be thinking that those are garbage systems that we'd be sending over there if they're going to be refurbished. No, that means that they have likely been in operation over inside of Israel, and that we are going to take them and make sure that they are up to par, that they have all good working pieces, because of how vital these suckers are before they get to Ukraine. So Ukraine is, in fact, going to be receiving Patriots, and the U.S. is supplying refurbished ones. That's a very good thing. That's a very good thing. And so now everybody that's been complaining about how MAGA hates Ukraine and everything else is about to get, like, I don't know, about to get a freaking very rude awakening. As a matter of fact, J.D. Vance even put out some information on this, saying that the negotiations are over, that we are no longer negotiating with this, that we're done. Let me find it. Let me pull it up. Nope. Should have had that one prepped. You have to forgive me. Oh, come on. Don't be this way. Well, anyways, he basically ended up saying that the negotiations are over between Ukraine and Russia. We know that last week that we ended up signing the like minerals deal with Ukraine to make sure that all of that's going out. And so all of that's in good working order. I want to bring this up because it has hit, how do I want to say, I don't want to say mainstream attention, but it has been put out pretty freaking hard by right and left-leaning accounts. And it has to do with HR 867. I want to make sure I got that bill right. Yeah, HR 867. So we're going to go over this really quick. I ended up putting a thread together on facts. If you guys are curious about this, I'm going to end up pinning it down, because there's a lot of people that are saying that this is a pro-Israel bill, and that it's basically protecting Israel and all sorts of crap. Dude, that's not what it is whatsoever. And the fact that we had so many right and left-leaning accounts put this false information out really wants me to like dig down into it. And if any of you guys have it, this is a thread I'm going to be going over. So I'm going to pin it up there. It's got all the relevant information that you guys are going to need when it comes down to this bill, and what is applicable currently under U.S. law and what that current U.S. law says, because I am damn tired of like Russian influence or Iranian influence or anybody's influence over inside of this country. And it definitely would appear like we now have paid trolls that are in so deep that they're able to fool people like Charlie Kirk. Charlie's a really smart man. Charlie Kirk is an extremely intelligent man. And I feel like he ended up getting duped by this because of the amount of reporting that goes out. And it's false reporting, extremely false reporting. Extremely false reporting. You guys are more than welcome. I ended up doing it myself. For those that don't know, well, you know what? I'm not even gonna get into that. Look, here are the facts. All right, currently, the Anti-Boycott Act has been approved. It's been law for quite some time now. All right, and it falls under Title 50, Chapter 58, Subchapter 2 of U.S. law. Title 50, Chapter 58, Subchapter 2. I'll say that again. Title 50, Chapter 58, Subchapter 2. I'm going to put it up on the screen right here for you, because it does currently exist. You guys can see it. It's going to be a lot of writing, so I'm going to have to zoom way in on you Anti-Boycott Act of 2018, Title 50, Chapter 58, Subchapter 2, uscode.house.gov. This is current U.S. law. I'll say that again. It is already current U.S. law. It has not been shelved. It hasn't gone away. It's currently in existence, for those that don't know. It's there. It's on the books. It's enforceable. What does it go over? This is what is so dang important that is kind of pissing me off. All right? Congress declares it is the policy of the United States to oppose restrictive trade practices or boycotts fostered or imposed by any foreign country against other countries friendly to the U.S. or against any United States person. Holy shit. So what this is essentially saying is that Iran launches a boycott against a U.S. citizen or an ally of the United States of America, and U.S. companies are forbidden to take part in that boycott. But it's not a carte blanche. It doesn't say just because you're not doing business with this particular country or this particular U.S. citizen, all of a sudden you're guilty of this law. Actually, it specifically states otherwise, and we'll get into that here in just a sec. It also goes over to encourage and, in specific cases, require United States persons engaged in the exports of goods or technology or other information to refuse to take actions, including furnishing information or entering into implementing agreements which have the effect of furthering or supporting the restrictive trade practices or boycotts fostered or imposed by any foreign country against a country currently friendly to the United States or any United States person. Why? Why? Because this is specifically targeting foreign intelligence operations influencing the United States of America in order to degrade our enemies or the U.S. itself, i.e. our economy. Again, they're going after the freaking dollar. It's very important that you understand that. But it goes even further. So everybody that's out there like going off on this thing, and I want to bring this up right here. I want to zoom in on this one. This is what else it covers, just so you guys know. Foreign boycotts, prohibitions, expect. Look, this is the type of shit that this law includes. Refusing or requiring any other person to refuse to employ or otherwise discriminating against any United States person on the basis of race, religion, sex, or national origin of that person or of any owner, office, director, or employee of such person. That is extremely important. It is specifically talking about foreign influence boycotting specific people or groups. And now it's adding in based on the big five that we already have. Equal opportunity here in the United States of America. But this is saying that if you take part in discriminating, i.e. you're a flipping racist, based on another country's boycott, now you can be held accountable under this law. And for some reason, people think that this is a bad thing, and they're freaking out. Ladies and gentlemen, this law is already on the books. It is absolutely nutso to me that people are trying to claim that it's Israel. You want to know a fun fact about Israel? Nowhere in here. Watch this. I'm just going to show you guys that it works. I'm going to type in person. See how many times it pulls up person? Look at that. 32 times. Now I'm going to pull up Israel. You guys, 0. The word Israel is mentioned 0 times in this freaking law. And do you know how many people are out there right now claiming that this is like out there to defend Israel? This is why I tell you influence operations and things like that actually exist, because I can go over right now and type in, HR 867 and go in right now and type in HR 867 and the word Israel, and the amount of shit that ends up populating on it is unreal. As a matter of fact, watch this. This is why it drives me insane. I'm going to go over to Alex Jones right now. Man, whether you like him or not, you think he's crazy, he's got a massive freaking following. All right, he's got a huge show. He's got 4.4 million followers over here on X. Okay, he's got a huge show called InfoWars. They do lots of different stuff. And he even ends up retweeting this out this morning. How is this even real? Marjorie Taylor Greene, U.S. Congresswoman, This House will vote Monday on H.R. 867, the IGO Anti-Boycott Act sponsored here. Fines up to $1 million, prison sentences for Americans participating in boycotts of Israel or its settlements if these boycotts are endorsed by international bodies like the UN or the EU. Try BRICS, bitch. Try BRICS. That's what it's talking about. It's not talking about the EU. It's talking about BRICS. Things of that nature. Countries that are hostile to the United States or its allies. And yeah, if the EU flips on the United States or its allies, you should be forbidden from doing that. I don't know if you know this or not, but that's not a good thing for America, nut job. In addition, it doesn't say Israel anywhere. And we're just talking about the Anti-Boycott Act, which is already on the books. And this woman is a freaking U.S. representative, is the worst part. That's the worst part. This woman is a representative. Now, let's go over H.R. 867. So ridiculous, man. I can't believe that this is actually a thing that people are like this dumb. H.R. 867, currently in existence. Let me find it. I have it somewhere here. If not, I'm going to just drop it real quick because I got it pulled up on my other computer. So let me grab it and drop it. That way I don't have to search for it and everything else. We're going to go over H.R. 867 because, again, it's not what everybody's making it out to be, and they've been duped. Charlie Kirk, we can go over and see what Charlie Kirk has to say about it. It's absolutely nuts. These people have quite literally no idea what the hell they're talking about. They like, if you want to know that like mainstream media, even our government reps, are quite literally just running their mouths about crap that they have failed to do the research of, oh my God, here it is for you. Here it is, H.R. 867. This is it. Again, I just showed you anti-boycott's already law here in the United States of America. So why are people complaining about it? Very good question. Well, here you go. Anti-boycott, H.R. 867. This is an amendment to amend the Anti-Boycott Act of 2018. To amend. It's an amendment. And what's the amendment include? In Section 1772, U.S. Code 50 under 4841 by inserting or international governmental organization. That's it. Or international governmental organizations. Would you like a list of those international government organizations which are hostile to the United States of America? I'm just going to name a few. All right? I'm just going to name a few. Let me pull these up. So freaking frustrating, man. So frustrating how stupid people are. Drives me absolutely nuts. Like, how do you not do the basic research on this crap? It is so simple. It is not that hard. Let's talk about them. How about the Shanghai Corporation? Yep, that would be one. How about BRICS? Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, Iran. All take part in BRICS. Not allowed. Axis of Resistance. It's not a formal IGO. Iran, Syria, Lebanese Hezbollah. These are good things. But yes, the way it's labeled, it would include the EU or the UN if they end up doing dumb things. Why? Because you have gray area inside of law and you allow for future things to happen. And if we want, we have the ability to adjust and change the verbiage. But you sure as hell don't want to give somebody a freaking free pass just because they have the title of the EU if they're acting against the US's best interests. We don't want ourselves, our allies, our citizens, or anybody like that to come under attack. Israel would be included in it, but again, remember how I told you that if you search it, it doesn't include the verbiage Israel and how freaking stupid these people are? Again, I'm just going to show you that the search function currently works. In section. Maybe it won't work on this one. There it is. So in section, it ends up pulling up 3 results for in section. Now again, the last one I showed you, it doesn't include the word Israel. So let's do it again. 0. 0.000 times is Israel mentioned. How these flippin' people think that it's included in the document is beyond me. How they think it's included in the document is beyond me. And again, idiots like Charlie Kirk ended up getting after it. Watch. He's not an idiot. He's a smart guy, dude. It freaking kills me. Kills me. Always, ladies and gentlemen, including myself, check your sources. Charlie Kirk, I would like to think, is a pretty freaking good source. But again, including myself, make sure that you're vetting it when it gets put out. Because this information has been floating around, and in my opinion, they're all falling for either Russian propaganda, anti-Semitic crap, whatever the case may be. Here it is. Let me move myself out of the way for you all. I'm sorry I keep moving myself around the screen, but I want you guys to be able to see what's actually up there. Tomorrow, Charlie Kirk, you can see him right here. The House will vote on H.R. 867, a bill that will criminalize boycotts of Israel. No, it doesn't. Doesn't criminalize random boycotts of Israel. You are welcome to set up a boycott here in the United States of America and boycott Israel should you flipping choose. You can do that as an American. What you can't do is jump onto a boycott that Iran's done of any of our allies. Israel would definitely fall under it, but the bill doesn't specifically state Israel because that is irrelevant. If Israel ended up becoming hostile towards the United States of America, or we end up not becoming allies with them in the future, we wouldn't want that to apply. So that verbiage isn't included in the bill. Bills like this only create more anti-Semitism. In America, you are allowed to hold different views. You still can. You just can't sign on to foreign government or international organizations such as BRICS influence when it comes to do this. This post is so objectively wrong, it's not even funny. Not even close to being accurate. This bill should not pass. Any Republican that votes for this bill will only expose themselves. Clearly, he didn't read the bill. Clearly, he didn't understand that it was an amendment to an already existing U.S. law. And again, this is Charlie Kirk, a self-proclaimed autodidact that is going to go out and do all this studying. Fox McCloud, what about the USS Liberty? Oh, bro, don't get me started. Please don't get me started. The sad part is I actually have to bring this up and talk about it because millions upon millions of Americans actually bought into this crap. And again, 3.7 million, and it doesn't even have a single community note on it. This does not prevent private U.S. citizens from boycotting whatever the hell they want. As a private boycott, like U.S. citizen, you can boycott whatever the hell you want. But what you can't do is join a movement by a foreign government that's hostile towards the United States to destabilize America and destabilize our allies. Skeptic coming in with 10. He said, this is embarrassing. Israel can't stop Hamas or the third world Houthis, and they want to take on Iran. They will get their clocks cleaned. Skeptic, there you are again, man. Hey, I really appreciate your donations every time. Thanks for funding the channel. Thanks for, I don't know, helping to improve our freaking stats by just donating and talking and doing everything you do, Skeptic. We greatly appreciate you. Here's the thing, Skeptic. I don't know if you know this or not, but technology isn't perfect when it comes to defenses. It's not. Doesn't work that way. And one could actually argue that the technology might have worked because it didn't actually strike the airport and it landed in the middle of an open field, albeit 350 meters away from the airport. How do you know that the technology didn't work and we just didn't save a buttload of money by shooting a system against it? Last I checked, it didn't hit shit. It hit an open field. And that's the way the systems are designed to work. If it detects that it's going to end up striking a target, then it ends up launching off. But it didn't now, did it? As a matter of fact, the only direct impacts that ended up taking place were against a military field all the way south inside of Israel last year by a massive wave that ended up getting fired by Iran. And even then, the airport was functional the next day, and it wasn't even proven that any of these aircraft ended up getting destroyed. And the one part of the airfield that did get hit wasn't even a big deal. The airport was still up and functioning. The one place they came close to striking inside Tel Aviv, the Mossad headquarters, they still missed. That impacted nothing. So saying that we can't stop the Houthis, in my opinion, is a little bit of a freaking joke, seeing as how they're currently getting the crap bombed out of them. And last I checked, if Iran was doing so good, they wouldn't have things like this going on over inside of their country right now, would they? And they wouldn't feel the need to have a social media blackout that would encourage all of the people that hate the Ayatollah to rise up now, would they? If Iran was doing so good and the Houthis were doing so good, how's that aerial blockade of the Houthis doing there, skeptic? Let's check on that aerial blockade again. Let's see how good that aerial blockade that the Houthis imposed is doing. You ready? Let's check it. Current aerial blockade of the Houthis on Israel. You're right. We can't stop them whatsoever. They're so damn good that everybody is worried about the Houthis. Look at all those people worried about the Houthis, skeptic. Look at them. Look at how worried everybody is about the Houthis over there. Oh my God. All those aircraft flying in and out. Everybody is so scared of them. They're so freaking good that all of these airlines think it's perfectly okay to be flying inside Israeli airspace right now because the Houthis are such a threat. You sound ridiculous, man. I hate to tell you that. You sound a little ridiculous. A ballistic missile sneaking through when the 99% of them have actually been shot down. As a matter of fact, let's go ahead and check that stat while we stare at the Houthis aerial blockade not even working right now. Just curious. One sec here, bud. Just keep staring. Here we go. I hope you're ready. Let's see how effective the Houthis are against Israel. Let's see how effective they are, bud. You ready? And we're going to do this since October 7th. Let's check out how effective their ballistic missiles are. I love doing this. They've launched 27 at Israel. 50% of the missiles failed during flight. Skeptic, 50% of the missiles that they fired have failed during flight. And I've shown those on this channel before of them crashing down over inside of Houthi territory. So that's pretty cool that ended up happening, right? So 50% have failed during flight, intercepted, or missed their targets. Well, most of the missiles were intercepted. Some have penetrated. I'm very curious. Very, very curious. BBG coming in, gifting out 5 Speak the Truth memberships. Appreciate you, brother. Fox McLeod says, but what about Jew Space Laser? Again, joking. Jew Space Laser is busy, man. You don't want to release the Jew Space Laser. You really don't. You don't want to release the Jew Space Laser, brother. You can't do it. You can't release the Jew Space Laser. Three out of the 27. May 4th, you have the strike from yesterday that ended up impacting the open field. December 18th, it was partially intercepted. So a partial interception means it hit it and it randomly fell down near a school. Structural damage. And then September 15th, you had one that reached central Israel that ended up landing near Lod and causing some shrapnel fire and a damage. That's it. Shrapnel damage and a fire. So 3 out of the 27. That's it. What was the original percentage I gave? 90? 99? Something of that nature? Sorry, 89%. 89%. That's why nobody gives a shit. Have you seen the update video from Unsubscribed Podcast? Yes, sir. In fact, I have. I'm going to go over to Discord. I'm going to open that up and wait for people to roll in. And I'm going to talk about the Unsubscribed Podcast. So if you guys want to come up and you want to chat, go up over into the Discord and get in there, and we'll end up pulling you guys up. Obviously, I want to hear about some of the stuff from what people over in Ukraine think and everything else, but get up over in the Discord and get ready for that. So Unsubscribe did come out with some brand new information. I told you guys on Friday I was going to release a video. Rich, i.e. Detective High, ended up sending me the video and stuff yesterday when it had first came out. Asked him, made sure that I'm not going to violate any of their stuff by going over it, publishing. I want to make sure I'm in the clear with them. Rich said, freaking send it, man, go hot. So I'm about to go hot with it today. As a matter of fact, as soon as I get done doing it, I'm going to go over their video that they ended up releasing, the facts that are in the video, and then further facts about, number one, the New York Attorney General, the District Attorney's Office, and the freaking Buffalo public school system. So we're going to go over the AG's office. We're going to go over the AG's office. We're going to go over the not Attorney General, the District Attorney's Office. And we're going to go over the Buffalo public school system, because there is a lot of crap that ended up coming out of them. Essentially, what ended up happening was they set up an email. For those of you that don't know, the Unsubscribed podcast ended up setting up an email, and it is takethehighroad@gmail.com. So it's HY road. Okay. So high as in Detective High, i.e. Angry Cops. And what they're asking is, if you have information, don't just randomly email them, but if you have information that leads to basically that you reported child SA to the school system or to the school resource officer and it ended up getting buried, or you received no action back, to directly email them. And please include, like victims information, who the reporting officer was, time and dates, all of that relevant information that they can use to go and FOIA that and pull it. Angry Cops, i.e. Detective High, is still an active police officer. He cannot just give out willy-nilly things. He can't just go pull things using his resources and provide it to the public. All of that would be policy violations and law violations and all sorts of other stuff. And the school system breaking the 8th Amendment. Kenneth, you are correct. When it goes to locking children inside of a bathroom and then that teacher still being employed all over the place, it's absolutely disgusting. I freaking hate that crap. Put your hand up, scrub. Yeah, if you guys got something, put your hand up so you can get up in here. You guys say that you can barely hear me in the Discord. I find that kind of hard to believe. All right, Lewis, we're going to end up pulling you up. You have requested a mic. You are coming up onto the stage, Lewis, so be ready for it as soon as we get you on there. You are in the house, my friend. Nate, yeah, always Nate, you're welcome to come up. Lewis is going to come up, and then we're going to let Evil Rick speak, because I think he's got a hot take as well. And then we're going to pull up Nate onto the stage for the long run. Lewis, I don't see you coming in yet. There you are, Lewis. What you got, friend?
What's going on? Can you
What's
hear
up,
me?
buddy? Yep, I can hear you just fine.
Yeah, I'm from Grand Island. I live in between Niagara Falls and Buffalo.
Uh-huh.
And when I was in school, there was a lot of that cover-up shit going on. Because, like, I even had teachers that were, when I was in school, doing some pretty shady stuff to girls, you know. Like, oh, come sit on my lap and this and that. And
Of course they were doing that.
yeah, and we got reported. We reported them several times, and it just kept getting buried and buried.
Yep.
And told the counselors, told the principals, had my parents call the school that, you know, he's doing shit to girls, trying to get them to sit on their lap and this and that. And it just kept getting buried. And then years later, my sister ended up having the same teacher, and she's 16 years younger than me. And the same damn teacher, tried to get my little sister, who was 16 at the time, to try to do the same shit, like sit on her lap and sit on his lap and fucking.
And this is the
all
Buffalo schools?
No, this is Grand Island.
Grand Island. Bro, do me a favor. If you know that teacher's name and stuff, send that to me, please, because that teacher has probably been bounced around 1,000 different times, and I want to, like...
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I'll end up finding whatever reports
he's been
are out
there
there.
for years, and I'm sure he just kept getting bounced around, and it was crazy.
Yeah. The last reaction video I ended up doing to the unsubscribe ended up getting like 250,000 views. I'm pretty sure this one's going to do the same. So I want to make sure that, you know, if there is something like that, it's included in there so people know, hey, go check this teacher out. As long as I can find
even
public
like
records
we
of it.
had a pastor on the island who was apparently selling his daughter to different people in the church.
Jesus.
Yeah,
Wow.
and nothing ever ended up happening. Like, she came out and like went on YouTube and, you know, all this other Instagram and like tried to get him in trouble and have him, you know, arrested, and it got buried, and everybody was like, oh my God, you know,
Hey,
what the hell is going on?
yeah, no, I will 100% include that. So where are you going to send that information to me at?
I can probably send it when I find out the teacher's name. I can't remember it right now, but I can send it to you on Twitter or whatever the hell it is.
Okay, yeah, perfect. Send it to me over there. That way I have it, and I'll be able to get that going, and I will include it in the video. I'm going to launch it at 5 p.m. tonight, so just throw it in there. Before then, hopefully I'll be able to, well, do me a favor, try to get it to me by about 2 p.m. That way I can cut it in and all that crap, right? Because there's no segue, because I'm going to film everything else before.
Yeah, it's just, you know, because I live in Grand Island, so I'm in between Niagara Falls and Buffalo.
Right.
And like I hear so much crazy shit going on that, and it always gets buried.
I get it. Hey, and out of curiosity, the people over in the YouTube chat want to know. We're not going to let it get buried. Don't worry about it. And this is a less serious note, but I had a huge nostalgia hit when I looked at the chat. Liz, are you the guy that was calling in last year when I used to do phone calls that we dubbed
the drunk Chris Griffin? Yep.
That's you?
Yep.
Oh. All right. Just wanted to make sure, man. Hey, if you don't mind, I'm going to squeeze over to Evil Ricks. Thank you for bringing that up. Send me that information. It's super important. I'm tired of these freaking pedos getting away with shit.
I mean, it's just ridiculous. You know, it's like all this shit against kids and you know, sexual assaults and rape and all this shit. It just gets buried, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, we're going to take care of that. 100%, man. Thank you very much for bringing that up, brother.
Like, even when I was a kid, like, it was getting buried, and that was
Lewis,
20 years ago.
I know, man. I'm going to go to Evil Rick now, okay?
All right. Sounds good. Take it easy, brother.
Thanks, brother. Evil Rick, what you got, friend?
Hey, Matt. How's it going?
It goes good, man. I remember seeing you, like, you had some hot take on something the other day, and I was like, I don't know if I agree with that statement. What? Do you remember what that was?
No, I don't at the moment.
Okay. What you got?
So it's kind of two things. It's about the whole situation in Ukraine. So I recently, like just today, I was kind of scrolling through X and I saw a thing about apparently they're having like some kind of internet blackout in Moscow till like the end of the week or something like that, till the victory parade ends.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of wondering, like, how do you think that's going to affect the morale of, like, the everyday Russian? Because, I mean, normally they'll have it, like, be filmed and stuff every year, but, like, this one, it just seems like it's a real worry for people that something's going to happen to the actual parade itself.
So, from what I have heard is they have already, like a lot of people are already planning on not attending because they are that concerned about it. And the social media blackout or the internet blackout, if that is, well, one, Nate, have you heard about that yet? You've got a better pulse than I do.
I've seen some things about it. It's hard to get accurate information out of Russia, right? So it's difficult to tell exactly what's going on, but it could be security strategy from Russia, or it could be a hacking thing that the Ukrainians did, and the Ukrainians should not admit it. So who knows what actually caused it?
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if that's true, but you know, we'll look. I am not seeing anything being reported via Russian media sources on it. Have you seen a Russian media source that has reported on that, Nate?
No, I just saw some Twitter posts about it, about blackouts with like Beeline and some other like cell service providers. But if the Russians did it, it would kind of make sense. You wouldn't want average citizens just taking pictures of where all your shit's staged.
Okay. I just found this, and it came out 25 minutes ago. Let me grab this and put it up on the screen. Moscow hit with internet disruptions ahead of Victory Day parade. This comes from the Moscow Times, which claims to be an independent news from Russia. Let me check and see who owns the Moscow Times and where that comes from. Do you know who owns that off the top of your head?
Me? No, I can Google it real quick, though. Give me a second.
That's what I'm checking right now. Before we, I want to check the source, like who the actual person is that's putting this crap out there and who owns it, because just because it says independent news from Russia, if it's coming out of the UK, I would not be surprised. You know what I mean? It's owned by a Dutch foundation established by its founder, Dur Sauer, in 2017 to comply with Russian laws limiting foreign ownership of media outlets. The publication's ownership structure was adjusted. 51% is held by Russian businessman Vladimir Zhao, 30%. All right, so I'm wondering. So it is 51% owned by Vladimir Zhao.
Yeah. Still, though, it wasn't created by a Russian talking about Russian news. So who knows? I mean,
right. So just to bring it up, and I'm looking at his particular stance to see if there's anything like the actual owner's stance on Russia, because if he's anti-Russian, whatever. But let's go ahead and see what it says real quick. It says mobile internet services in Moscow faced major disruptions on Monday as authorities warned residents of possible outages throughout the week due to heightened security ahead of the Victory Day celebrations. So it is saying that whatever, that the authorities, whoever the hell the authorities are saying that it might be coming out. Russia's emergency alert system sent out messages warning of mobile internet restrictions from May 5th to the 9th to ensure security in connection with the preparation. So there you have, they sent out messages. Let's see if we have links to these messages. All right. God, I don't even want to open Telegram on my desktop. Give me a sec.
Yeah, don't.
Yeah,
I'll do it. What's the Telegram page? I
don't want to deal with it.
Special phone for that.
Yeah, I know. I will end up sending it. Well, it's too late. I already clicked the link. I'm an idiot. Yeah, let me just. Yeah. I know, right? God, man, I hate.
You said you were getting a new one anyway, so just shit can that one.
Well, yeah, it's shit can now. Dang it. And that sucks because it's linked to a couple different things. But let me go ahead and translate it real quick. It says, to get the proper translation. Yeah, interruptions. Moscow with a sparkle. That Moscow with a sparkle to me isn't a thing, but come on, translate. God, I hate this fucking thing. Hate Windows so bad. Whatever. Okay, so there you have it. It looks like there is reports of it coming out and being the fault of the Russian government. So let's just go there. All right, Nate, what do you think?
About the cell phone disruptions or just anything in general? Just in general,
when it's coming to everything that's going on over inside of Ukraine right now, and everything that's going on with like Russia, because it seems to me like there is, I don't know. Talk to me about the different links and stuff that you sent me over the weekend.
So yeah, the big drone/missile attacks and sea drones, right? A lot of those arrows that you saw in there were actually sea drones. One thing that was particularly interesting to me is the Ukrainians did successfully employ a Magura drone, which are like the little speedboat type drones.
Okay.
But they hooked AIM-9Xs to it and shot down 2 Su-30s over the weekend.
Explain AIM-9X, please.
AIM-9X is a thermal, it's a Sidewinder, it's a heat-seeking, normally air-to-air missile, right? So that's our primary close-in air-to-air missile that our fighter jets use. It's like about 3 meters long. And the interesting part about it is, so the tactic became, how do you deal with these sea drones? Okay. So the Russians went out and they started strafing them with helos and aircraft. Well, then the Ukrainians are like, hey, let's put heat-seeking missiles on the drones. So now what you have essentially with these sea drones is kind of like a miniature autonomous carrier strike group type thing where you have strike drones and then you have support escort vehicles going with it to protect them.
So you have drones going around the Sidewinders.
Which is, yeah. So you have like, drones. Yeah, it's pretty cool. And not only with them, they shot down 2 fixed wing fast movers, which is pretty crazy. And one of them, they posted a video and you could see that because it's thermal, which is passive, that aircraft had zero idea that it was being pursued by a missile. It didn't evade. It didn't launch flares. Didn't do anything. It just got, tailpiped. It just got tailpiped by an AIM-9X, and that was it.
Wow.
So that's a pretty interesting thing. And then I do think, I've been saying it over the weekend since I sent you that picture, that part of that strategy is like I said last week, I don't necessarily believe that the Ukrainians are going to hit the parade itself, but I think they're going to use the fact that a bunch of things have been moved out of theater. I've heard some reports of Russians on Russian Telegram complaining that they don't have vehicles because they're pulling combat vehicles from the front to participate in parades. So what that's going to do is just create openings, whether it's openings with air defense or openings, on the ground.
Do you think it's a
feint?
feint?
Then just today, this morning, what's that?
You think it's a feint? You know what feint is? It's like what we did for D-Day, where we, blew up freaking balloons and stuff like that and pretended we had tanks and everything. We were going to attack from somewhere else.
Yeah, look over here, and then you go do something else. Draw a bunch of shit and draw a bunch of assets into. So Russia is kind of naturally of their own design going to have to, put a bunch of air defense assets around Moscow and St. Petersburg and anywhere they intend on having these parades. It's not just one parade. They don't just have one in Moscow. That's the big one. They have these goddamn parades all over the country, in different towns. They were going to have one in Sevastopol, which, how big of an idiot do you have to be? I mean, how many times has Sevastopol been hit by missiles?
A lot.
Why would you gather a bunch of shit up and have a parade there? And they just canceled that this morning. So I think what you're going to see is like you and I always say, operations, intel drives operations. So the Ukrainians are scanning the battle space, and they're looking for weaknesses that are created by this and maybe creating their own weaknesses. And, the purpose of that attack was not only just to consume air defense assets for the Russians, they degraded things. You know what I mean? They shot down 2 aircraft. That's a big deal for Russia. And then whatever they hit. And what I do like about what the Ukrainians are doing is they're not talking about what they hit anymore, right? They used to show BDAs and all that stuff.
Yeah,
and I like the fact that they're being more quiet about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's cool for us, on the internet, trying to get people to watch us. But intel wise, I'd rather not know what they did. Right. You know what I mean? That's a better OPSEC thing, is just but what I do think the Ukrainians do is they'll hold off on their BDA kind of publicity reports, and then they'll let the Russians lie about it. And then once they lie and say, we shot down 100% of the drones, then they'll be like, well, then why is there, a giant crater in your airstrip right now? Right. You know what I mean? Right. So, but they allow them to lie to kind of make them look stupid, which is good.
To me, it also goes over, I don't know. How do you feel about the Iran situation and being tied in? I got more reports, basically that Ukrainians are worried about Russian gas attacks again, like not just the peclochlorin, but not peclochlorin. What the hell is the name of it? The frickin' tear gas.
I know. I know which one you're talking about. Yeah,
not tear gas, but actual. They're worried about nerve agents and blister agents. Chloropicrin. There we go.
Chloropicrin. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, they're actually worried about nerve and blister agents right now, and the word that I got is they're trying to source all sorts of gas masks and all sorts of other shit because they are worried about that, to make sure that they're properly distributed.
They should, because I think, the combination of Ukraine kind of ever increasing their capabilities, right? They're about to come online with that Grim ballistic missile. And the reality is they probably have some. And I think what the Ukrainians are doing is waiting until they have enough. They're not going to fire them off at the rate of production. I think they're kind of building up a stockpile of those. And when they finally come online, you're going to see a bunch of shit get hammered. It might be in a few days, because they have had those things flying and tested for close to a year, I believe. So they've been just building them for a year. So, you know, and then you got the U.S. just sent a bunch of F-16 parts, spare fuselages, all kinds of upgrades for the F-16s are en route. You got the Ukrainians also training with Czech and some other European pilots on the Gripen. The AWACS that the Swedes sent is coming online, which tells me that the F-16s that were delivered already have been upgraded with the, you know, Link 16 data link system. So you have Ukraine militarily kind of increasing their strength. Their artillery is, you know, local artillery production is coming online. You got millions of shells going to come online this year. And then you add that to the fact that the Russians are facing financial calamity, right? They really are. And if the price of oil keeps continuing to drop, they're kind of screwed, right? And they're going to keep having to tap into that, you know, sovereign wealth fund. And sooner or later, the thing's going to run dry. They're going to run out of money. And you couple those together, and what you're going to wind up getting is a desperate Russia.
Yeah, that's how I feel. That
doing
Russia's
desperate
getting desperate.
things.
I feel like Russia's getting desperate, and I feel like the Patriots that are getting sent over there right now are just a tiny little portion. And the only reason we're being made aware of it is because they're moving from Israel over there. But it doesn't matter because we already moved an entire freaking battalion over into CENTCOM. And I think that, well, in addition to that, we've had other Patriot batteries that were in operation over inside Israel prior to. So you agree with me, though, when I say that those are being refurbished and sent into Ukraine, that is to make sure that they're fully operational and good to go before they go into service, not that they're piles of garbage?
No, they're not piles of garbage. The Israelis have been using them. So the Israeli, like the Iron Domes thing, I think somebody can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think those missiles are capable of being fired from the Patriot system. But like anything else, it probably requires a software update. When you say refurbished, I would be willing to bet you that all of the instructions and writing that's on those things are in Hebrew. So when you say refurbished, some of that shit is just going to be changing the placards on the vehicles so where the Ukrainians can read it, changing the software around to where it can fire U.S.-made interceptors instead of Israeli-made interceptors, that kind of thing. I'm sure they're perfectly functional or they wouldn't bother sending them. But there are going to be little adaptations and changes that need to be made that are probably relatively minor.
Yeah.
And just making sure they're ready for that, for that theater. So, yeah, I think they're fine.
I want to see right now what the economic impact is going to be on Russia. I'm just asking, and it's going to take a minute for this to happen. Yeah. Give me 1 sec here.
I do have one more question for Nate, if that's okay.
Yeah, go for
it. So I've only seen like 2 or 3 posts on X, so I don't really know if it's valid. Have you heard anything about another Kursk offensive, possibly?
I did see some videos this morning of a few vehicles breaking through, like Dragon's Teeth stuff. I don't think it's something, I mean, at this point, I haven't seen anything to make me think it's major. It might just be, you know, because the Ukrainians are constantly doing stuff to jack with the Russians. Now, if you look at, like, they did a big drone and missile attack on Crimea, and now if they're probing in Kursk, right? Those 2 areas are pretty far apart from each other. So what you're doing is kind of stretching out the Russians and making them wonder, right? Now they have to spread things thinly. It seems to me that if they're doing something, it's just to mess with the Russians and maybe spread things out. And when you get people nervous and trying to react, I think that's when they tend to expose themselves and expose a weakness somewhere. So you can do a truly intel-driven operation. Now, I don't think that the Ukrainians are at the point, or the Russians are at the point where, like, transitioning from defensive operations into maneuver warfare is a good idea right now. But who knows what they got cooked up, man. And if we don't know, the Russians don't know, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, and I would think for the maneuver warfare and all of that, I think that they are going to need a lot more equipment and a hell of a lot more training before they launch that type of an offensive operation. You're pushing at about the right time, but if we were to look at what ended up happening in the other counteroffensive that ended up taking place, that we saw a freaking dude that they stepped off a hell of a lot earlier than they have right now. Nate, you were there. Like, step off a hell of a lot earlier than they are now. And then they ended up slowing that momentum down by about, I think it was by about July. I feel like the momentum started to shift a little bit, and because the guys had pretty much started reaching towards the lines. And so with that being said, they're already up there on it. So it's not going to, be that big of a change. They could launch it right now. But the deal is how much ammunition they have stockpiled, because while we have talked a lot about the Russian, munition stockpiles being hit over on Russian territory over the last several months, I remember seeing several large Ukrainian stockpiles being hit as well. And so I don't know where Ukraine's current munitions are at. Now, if they've been acting in strictly a defensive posture and not offensive in most of the regions, which they have, then that would allow them to start stocking up on these dang things, and they could have enough saved up in order to launch that type of an operation.
Yeah, maybe. Like, the thing with me is, if you go back to the first Gulf War, Schwarzkopf did a really famous speech to the media like a few days before the ground operations in the first Gulf War ended. And he talked about the bombing campaign and what their targets were. And basically he said, our goal was to degrade frontline troops in Iraqi defensive positions by 75% before we ever tried to, cross the flot. You know what I mean? Before we ever tried to move forward. And I think, for the Ukrainians, the one thing they have to take into consideration, they do have some F-16s, but they do not have top cover like the United States military does. Right? It's not the same. So if you're going to go and try to breach a defensive position with a large force, the Russians don't need like ballistic missiles to stop that. They need artillery. They need, which they have plenty of, and they need things like anti-tank missiles, right? Because sooner or later, somebody's going to have to slow down and stop in front of those Dragon's Teeth and clear those minefields out. And when they do, you're going to have anti-tank gunners just fucking lighting you up, right? And without that top cover, it just gets to be really difficult. So I think, if it were me, and this is again somebody who, even though I've been there, I don't have any insider information on the true, logistic situation that the Ukrainians are in, like truly. And that's a good thing, right? I shouldn't know, and neither should anybody on this Discord chat or YouTube. But for me, it's like, as long as you are winning that war of attrition against the Russians and they are grinding themselves into a stump running into you, let them keep doing it until they're so degraded that your intel tells you that it's time to transition to maneuver warfare.
Yeah.
And if they've made that determination, then hopefully they're right. But to me, I would want that evidence to be overwhelming.
Before I go over the oil stuff real quick, I want to point something out that I ended up seeing, and hopefully you're able to see this as well, Nate, when I put it up on the screen. And I don't think people realize how ridiculous this is, like what I'm about to show, and I kind of want your reaction to it before I bring it up. It's a video that Preston Stewart put out of a Russian motorcycle assault. Have you seen this yet?
I saw it. I saw it this morning, yeah.
All right, well, let's go ahead and play it for the people real quick. Let me play it for the people real quick, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I got you.
Okay. Thank you. Right. So let's talk about this, Nate. I'm kind of, before I even say anything about it, I'm really curious to hear what you actually think about that video, because go ahead. Sound off.
Okay, remember that North Korean video we showed the other day?
Yep.
That was, supposedly combat. I think this is another one of those, because they're acting like they're shooting at something, but if you or I or any reasonably trained infantryman was in a position with an automatic weapon or even a rifle, all three of those Russians would have been dead before he got his little bullshit stock flipped out and charged his weapon. And not from I wouldn't even have to be close, 400 or 500 meters. I could have killed all of those guys. He certainly wouldn't be standing in the road like an idiot, messing with his gun.
Right. Like if he's that concerned, he goes and he breaks down and he charges it. Why? Well, number one, why isn't there a freaking round in your chamber, you dumbass? But number two,
clear, yes,
right. Number two, why the hell aren't you running for cover? Like, why are you just sitting there?
Exactly. Why
like
are you
just
said
any crew
not sitting
served or
standing?
Rifleman, right? Any crew served, rifleman, et cetera, would just mow them down. And I'm seeing more and more stuff like that come out, and it's 3 guys on motorcycles, which I don't care what shiny colored hat you wear or what Spetsnaz training you went to. 3 guys on motorcycles aren't going to do jack shit. Against,
tits on a fish is what that is. Yeah, not useless, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's like no matter what specialized training you have, it doesn't stop bullets. It doesn't make you invincible, and it sure as shit doesn't allow you to just do a willy-nilly random assault on a motorcycle like that. That's how you die. I'm with you. I think
exactly.
It's a bullshit propaganda video, and I'm seeing a lot of them.
Yeah, if you wanted to teach somebody the best way to get yourself killed in combat, do what that guy did.
Right.
And charge towards the enemy. Like, I guarantee you, if I'm on the other side of that line or whatever you're attacking, I'm going to kill you and then finish spreading my goddamn jalapeno cheese spread on my crackers. And then I'm going to make fun of you. And it would be a blip on my radar for the day. It'd be like, oh, well, what's the guy? What's wrong with that guy?
So I saw Israel has approved to go assault Gaza, or excuse me, expand operations, which we all know that's going to be assault Gaza. And I think my analysis of what's going to take place with them, like doing a systematic clear, pushing the Gazans that are inside Gaza Strip down into Rafah in order to go like get screened and processed out of the freaking country or moved to a safe location inside Egypt, whatever the hell they're going to do with them. Right. Or excuse me, they're flying them into Syria. My bad. I remember that now. They're being housed somewhere inside Syria, which is a whole other ballgame. I'm seeing HTS going in and murdering people. I saw a beautiful video of Christian. I say beautiful very sarcastically. It's freaking horrendous, and I hate seeing this crap. This morning, over inside of Damascus, of a woman that was in Western clothes that had been shot in the head and the hip inside of an underground nightclub over in Damascus. The HTS went in and freaking massacred the people in the nightclub because, they're not following Islamic law, and so they just murder them. Yeah. So that's where we're moving these people, FYI, over into that.
Yeah. What else would you do?
Yeah, just go in and murder them, right? Anyways, so I think that they're going to begin that very, very soon. And I assessed this morning on the podcast that before they do that, they're going to have to go after Iran, because Iran ended up essentially hanging that big freaking threat to Israel of all the freaking red alerts going down immediately following that news.
Well, listen, if you again, to go back to that same phrase, Intel drives operations. So I know there's a deadline, but I don't think that the U.S. or Israel will conduct operations based on deadlines. They'll conduct them based on intelligence.
Correct.
And whether or not it's the right time and they have the right assets in place. But that deadline passing means, you had both Donald Trump himself, not Pete Hegseth, but Donald Trump and Netanyahu both publicly say, we will attack you at a time and place of our choosing.
Correct.
It's coming, right? That's not an accident. And, it's one thing if your SecDef says something and kind of issues a threat, he's not really the guy that decides. But when the decision makers do it and they're in lockstep with their language, it's coming. It's going to be joint, and it's going to be overwhelming. And like you said, with all these, like when that port exploded with the sodium perchlorate, that's one thing, right? That is a very, very hazardous chemical to handle. You could say, if that was an isolated incident, you could say, okay, that could happen. I've had my job sites burned down because of, oxidizing breakers, which is essentially the same chemical, right? Just because a little hydraulic oil sprayed on it and then boom,
exactly.
It's, the whole thing. Yeah, it's fast. So, it's not unheard of for those things to happen. But when you have this many industrial accidents and like something blew up, I can't remember the name of the town in Iran, but they said it was a tire factory. And I'm like, okay, yeah, a tire factory. I'm sure that's what it was. Right. Right. After a while, so many of these industrial, accidents are probably not accidents.
Right.
And
Thank you.
And I think that's where we're at. And I think you're correct that this is a shaping operation of some sort. And there is an underground. The thing a lot of people don't realize, I was in a space on X talking about Iran, and it was full of like Iranian diaspora in the US. And I kept referring to, what Iran is doing is like the Iranians, and all the people in there were like, no, Islamic Republic.
Yeah.
Don't say Iranians, right? And I'm like, I know it's just habit. Like, I don't mean it that way. But the reason for them saying that is because the Islamic Republic and the IRGC is very unpopular in Iran.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a huge number of people that are looking for an opportunity to get rid of them. And this may be that opportunity. So
I agree with you 100%. I
think that's what we're seeing.
Well, people got upset because I had essentially what I'm just going to call prophesized that it is our sleeper cells that we have released between the United States and Israeli intelligence that ended up releasing them. And I think all of this does tie in directly with what's going on over inside of Ukraine as well. You and I had talked about this a lot, like both times you were on the show, and then just personally, we had talked about this on how all of the things are tied together, and we're likely to see all of them come together at like an apex point. I feel like that particularly is what we see right now. We see that crossroad that's hitting. We see, the Patriot systems that are being moved over into Ukraine. Oddly enough, I saw it. I lost it. I don't know where it went. A clip of JD Vance basically saying we're done with the freaking negotiations with Russia. Like that shit's done.
Yeah. Well, and like, I've seen that too. And what people are kind of, I think, misinterpreting from those statements is when they say, oh, are we abandoning Ukraine? And it's not what he said. He didn't say we're done with Ukraine.
No.
He said we're done negotiating.
Correct.
That's a very different thing. We're done talking is essentially what that means.
Mm-hmm.
And one other thing that Trump said during his campaign, and he only said it once, and it was kind of glossed over by a lot of people. But he said if I'll try to achieve peace through negotiation, and somebody asked him what if Russia doesn't accept it, and he said I'll give Ukraine everything they want.
Correct. Yeah, I've pointed that out to people that they will he will give Ukraine everything they want and need.
Yeah, and if I'm not here to try to convince people to change their political persuasion, right? But it's like anything else, even if you don't like Trump, you got to call balls and strikes on everything that he does, right? So if he does something good for Ukraine and you're pro-Ukraine, you got to support it. Even if you don't like Donald Trump, it doesn't matter. And, I've been the same way with, Biden and Obama, right? Like, I'm not a Democrat, but if they do something smart, I'm like, yeah, that's a good idea. So keep doing more of that. But I think that's the problem is people get so caught up in their feels when it comes to politicians that even when they're doing the thing you want them to do, they're like, well, it's probably fascist. You know what I mean? Like, no, dude. Like Marjorie Taylor Greene, for example, she's an idiot. She's the Republican Party's AOC.
I don't know if you saw me go over that this morning, but I was like, dear God, you're a freaking U.S. Congresswoman. Holy shit.
Well, look, if she's such a moron that I kind of look at her as somebody that if she's mad at me, I'm probably over the target.
Yeah.
Like it's probably a good thing. It's like a badge of honor. If she disagrees with what I'm doing, I'm probably doing the right thing.
Well, she's not on point.
Idiot.
She's not on point.
No,
ever.
I mean, listen, are we gonna take the lady that actually said in public, unironically, Jewish space lasers seriously?
Yeah, that's what you're supposed to do. She's a congresswoman.
Well, listen, I'm running for Congress because if that moron can get elected, I should just be able to show up in a Speedo, like a Borat Speedo.
You should.
A Borat Speedo and be like, very nice.
You and your cousin should start promoting because, we had the Bushes for a while. And like the Bushes were kind of like dominating politics for a very long period of time. Like I think it's time for the Vances to start doing that personally.
You want a Vance dynasty in politics?
To start making it happen, man. I see a lot of things I like going on with it. So just get after it. I'm okay with it.
I'll try it. I'll try it. I need to find a district where I think I could win, where we need to primary somebody. I'll do it.
I mean, it would
get all
really
your viewers
cool.
to sign a petition.
I'm just saying it'd be really cool if he ended up running for president and you threw your name in for VP and you guys just ended up pissing off the entire world, having a family running the freaking country. Just throwing that out there.
The Vance ticket, you know.
Yeah.
But listen, I can tell you right now, I would be, and I have no history in diplomacy, and I would be a much better negotiator than Witkoff.
Well, here's the thing, though. Like, I've talked to you, and like, you're really intelligent when it comes to geopolitics and foreign policy and the different things that we're doing, particularly when it comes down to warfare and everything else. And I would agree with you as far as Witkoff goes, that you'd be a hell of a lot better negotiator when it comes down to all of that. I think you'd have to learn.
Well, listen, and this is something that Witkoff has not figured out. I think he went to like the gentle school of diplomacy, where, you know, when you deal with people like Putin and Iran, it's basically you have to go in there and say, this is what you're going to do, or I'm going to kill everyone.
Correct.
And I'm not going to tell you when I'm going to do it.
And you have
and they have to believe. Yeah, they have to believe that you are crazy enough to kill everybody. And so for dealing with Russians, I'm like, listen, the only reason I didn't kill more of you is because I didn't have the stuff I needed. Now I'm in charge of the Department of Defense, so I have everything I need to kill you now.
Well, I would hope that you get that approval prior to go in there. Like, going in and negotiating with Putin, for example, that you would need military might to get him to come to the table. He doesn't give two shits about economic sanctions, as we've already seen. When it goes down to negotiating with Iran, you do the exact same thing. For the love of God, when it comes to Hamas, there is no negotiations. You go in there and you tell them, you will do this or we will kill you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, look, when Trump negotiated with, what was it? Was it Al Qaeda or
the Taliban?
And he called that guy in the Taliban, and he called that guy in there and like showed him a video of his house, and he's like, I'm going to kill you if you don't do what I want.
Correct.
And the guy did what he wanted until he wasn't around anymore. You know what I mean? And then, but the guy was like, all right, I understand that message. That's my language. You know what I mean?
I mean, they were in violation of it though in November, and he was like, screw that, we're not pulling troops out. And we never going to see like kind of what that led to. And I know I've stated that a couple different times on the show, but it's on congressional record. And I want to say it was, who the hell was the chief of staff, joint chief?
Oh, God.
Towards the end.
Oh, Jesus, I can't remember
his name off it, but it was the joint chief that put it on congressional record that he said, no, Trump did issue that order. And then he immediately rescinded it because the Taliban was in violation of the Doha Agreement.
Right.
So,
yep. I know.
They would have likely got schwacked if he would have got back in office.
Oh, they would have. I think they would have. And probably the only reason they didn't is because of the election and things like that. You know what I mean? Because you got to be a little bit political during election season. But
Millie, thank you.
But yeah, like that's the thing with politics is, you know, it's a dirty business. You can't, but you have to be fair, even if you don't like somebody, about what they're doing, right? So when you look at the past week when it comes to Ukraine, and listen, I've been saying for a long time that the only reason there was even the, you know, appearance of kind of a quote unquote friendly relationship between Putin and this administration was because they were seeking their help with Iran. And if they can avoid killing a bunch of people in the Middle East in Iran, because here's the other thing is, there are no bombing campaigns without collateral damage. And there are a lot of Iranians who are not anti-America, right? Mm-hmm. So the sad reality is if you go in there and bomb these nuclear facilities and take out all these weapon systems, you're probably going to kill some people that are actually our friends. So it's fair, and it's a prudent thing to try to seek an off-ramp that doesn't include killing people. That's prudent. So I think there was some perceived potential usefulness from Putin in terms of dealing with Iran. And then if you go back and look at the rhetoric coming out of the White House, within 24 hours of Iran and Russia re-upping that security pact that included the continuation of nuclear enrichment in Iran, within 24 hours, the shit talking started to flow from the White House towards Putin. And it hasn't stopped, and it's been increasing. And the measures that you're seeing coming out of this administration are getting more and more clear that they are not on Team Russia, and I'm here for it. So, you saw me complain when I saw something I didn't like, and now I see things I do like, and I'm going to cheer it on. I don't care who it upsets.
Right. And I think it's 1,000%. It's the writing was on the wall. As long as you could read between the lines and see the different things that we're talking about, and bring up even some of the smarter things that you've brought up, of who the hell is going to be the ones to enforce things over inside of Iran if we have some sort of a nuclear deal, right? Like, who would be like actually enforcing, seeing it, like putting that in place? Once all of that deteriorated, then there's no point for us to be negotiating with Russia anymore, and Putin can kiss our ass. And then Zelensky makes a statement that quite literally threatens the Victory Day parade, and the United States, specifically the president of the United States, comes out and declares World War II Victory Day.
Listen,
I mean,
I hate to interrupt you, but that was comedy gold. And that was one of those moments where Trump really, and I don't know if it was his idea or not, but whoever's idea it was understands that region very well, because since that's come out, Russian heads have been exploding all over they're losing their minds over that. And it's the funniest thing for me to watch. Anytime Russians are upset, I'm happy about it.
Yep. All right. You ready for this? So by the Red Sea shipping lanes reopening, Gulf to Europe routes would be 16 days shorter, again, saving right around $600,000 per voyage, which indirectly helps Gulf producers manage overall freight expenses and price flexibility. It looks like the market would greatly shift. Russia's crude has captured record shares in India, 36% in 24 and 25, while Middle East shares fell to 48%. China takes 47% of Russia's crude oil. Massive. These shares could erode if Gulf producers undercut the prices. We might see Russia's share in India slip back below 1/3, depending on pricing, and Middle East region resuming some lost ground. In China, Russia could remain the top supplier, but any loss of price competitiveness might cap further gains in the market. Other Asian markets, Turkey, Sri Lanka, Indonesia, that import some Russian crude oil could also revert to non-Russian suppliers, because it's all going to be dropping due to this. So you're talking about $600,000 per freaking shipment that would end up being cheaper, and Russia is going to end up getting priced out of the market. It could greatly impact.
It's huge. Russia's about to start hemorrhaging money. OPEC came out the other day. The Saudis are going to increase oil output by 400,000 barrels a day starting this month, and then in another couple of months, it's over 1 million barrels a day increases. Right, so all of that is going to come right out of Russia's pocket. So they're not making much. They're not making much per barrel now. If anything, I think their target number is about $70 a barrel. Global prices are hovering around 60, but in some places and some different types of crude, I think we discussed that it was around 50 at some ports. So, but let's just say the global average is 60. That's still $10 a barrel below what they need to be able to function at the rate they're functioning at. So every time it drops below that number, they got to tap into that sovereign wealth fund, which is already halfway depleted. And I see
it's another $20 billion hit to them.
Woo! Estimated. And that's an economy that's smaller
economy
than
of 2.1
Nebraska.
trillion. Yep, Russia's GDP total of 2.1 trillion in 2024 estimated. And so you're talking about cutting at 20 billion out of 2.1 trillion. That's a decent hit.
Yeah, well, and that's, you say a GDP, that doesn't mean money that the government has to spend. No, right? That's total money spent in the country.
Well, the thing is it accounts for 30% of their expendable budget. So when we take that into account, with the money being 30% of their expendable budget, let's look at that.
Yeah.
And we'll look at 2024.
And even then, you got to take these budgets with a grain of salt, because a lot of those numbers are being given by Russia, which they're probably overestimating things.
Correct. I was going to say they're likely high because of like where it sits at. But when you start talking about just by reopening the Red Sea, you end up hitting about 20 billion. That's a freaking huge hit.
Yeah, that's just the Red Sea. That doesn't even include like oil price reductions.
So their expendable budget was $397 billion US dollars. That was their expendable budget.
Yeah.
$397 billion, and you're whacking it down 20.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, whacking it down 20. And then for every dollar the price of oil goes down, it's even more money.
Correct. Right? And so these are just random estimates that I threw in with some key parameters, asking it to take into accountability, asked it to do a deep dive research, cited sources, check sources real quick. That's what I was doing while you were talking that whole time. Make sure it's quasi accurate. And I think it's a low end estimate saying that 20 billion. That's a pretty big freaking hit when you start talking about, 400 billion total budget, and they're already freaking broke.
Yeah. Now you got to think too, like, look at the difference here. The U.S.'s military budget alone, just our military budget, is $900 billion.
Right.
So we spend twice on our military what they have to spend on roads, schools, free healthcare, their military, their shipping industry, their, everything.
We actually spend over two times.
Yeah, more than twice, more than two times on one component of our, of our budget. So Russia, if they don't that's the thing, is people don't understand. I mean, I know people have been saying that they're approaching financial calamity for, you see YouTube videos where they're like, any day now, and they keep saying stuff. But there are really some markers now that are starting to change. Like throughout this conflict, oil prices have been relatively high, up in the $80, $85 a barrel range. That gives them the ability to sell stuff on the black market and make money so they can continue to have money coming in. But as those prices start to drop, and OPEC came out and said they're increasing production by 400,000 barrels a day. That's not an insignificant thing. And OPEC are, I don't think OPEC's doing that to help Ukraine. OPEC's doing that to help themselves because they want that market share. They know that Russia's not going to be able to fire their oil industry back up, with any rapidity after this conflict ends. So every customer they lose, OPEC will kind of gain for a relatively long-term service contract. So, but I don't care why they're doing it or what their motivation is, as long as it helps. If it's a good thing, I'm not going to argue with them about it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's going to go good. So Nate, I think I'm going to go ahead and close out right here. It's almost 11 a.m. I've been live for about 2 hours. As you know, bathroom breaks are a must. And I have another video that I need to shoot and release today along with everything else. And it's really nice to have you on for these discussions. I'd like to do more. You want to do another one tomorrow?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Hell yeah, man. All right. I look forward to that. Oh, man. Let's see here. Somebody's got their hand up. Looks like Dureg wants to come in and make a statement. So let's pull him up so that he can come in and make one. All right, Dureg. I don't even know if I properly announced your name. Go ahead. Send it.
What's up, you guys? Can
Before
you hear me?
Close out. Yeah, man. Send it.
Can you hear me? All right, man.
Yeah.
It's my first time up on here talking to you guys, especially with Nate Vanson here. I wanted to ask a question. I like everything that's coming out of the Trump camp right now. Do you guys think that we will, and or when will we start to see some of those, those campaign promises from, like no tax on tips, no tax on overtime? I think he even at one point said no tax in general on any income. Are we going to see that kind of things that are going to affect like hardworking Americans, or do you think that's just, typical campaign promise?
My take is anything tax related is going to involve Congress. So that's not even, if you were relying on the executive branch to get that done, I hate to break it to you, but Congress is going to have to vote on that and pass it, and then the president will sign it. But that's the only way to get those kind of things passed.
I got you. All right.
Yeah, I don't.
Well, that's pretty much all I have for you guys.
Yeah, that's concur. You got to wait on legislation, which good luck. I mean, and I think also, you're talking about the first couple months here, and to just kind of be patient, because there's a lot of legislation that everybody's looking at, and there's a lot of derail operations that are, taking place. Like I went over that HR 867, I think it was. I mean, just think about the amount of BS that's going to stir up in Congress this week, and how much that's going to freaking slow them down, and the amount of people that are now going to want to stand up and pontificate about things like this, right? Think about
over some
stuff.
Yeah.
Over some bullshit.
Over some bullshit
that's already been passed.
Yep.
All to add.
When is the budget? When is Congress required to pass the budget? I can't remember what month they do that. Yeah, but that's when you'd see if somebody was going to propose a bill for like a tax thing, it would be as part of the 2026 budget.
Yeah, I would think so. I'm looking it up real quick, man. Give me a sec. October 1st. So not until the fall.
Okay. Well, they got time to write those bills then and propose them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I remember like that. I should remember because I remember specifically that was when we started to get screwed over in the military because budgets weren't getting passed and things weren't getting done. And they were,
Yep. And they may start doing that a little closer to midterm season. I mean, I hate to say that, but politicians are going to politic. So, and the American electorate has a pretty short memory. So if they're going to try to do things to motivate the base that voted for those things, they may do it a little closer to the midterm time, which, October is going to be, you're getting into midterm season already. So I think you'll probably see more talk about it then.
Yeah, 100%. All right, brother. I'm going to go ahead and close this sucker out. Like I said, bathroom breaks are a must. I must refuel and replenish myself before cutting new videos. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. But I want to thank you.
All right, man. Take care.
I want to thank you, and I'll see you again tomorrow morning. Yeah, I might just bring you up and do a freaking, just have you do the live with me and throw you up in the freaking corner of the screen and go over it back and forth. And I don't know, man. We'll talk about it. We'll talk later today.
Yeah. Holler at me.
All right, brother. Have a good one.
All right, man. All right, bye.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you guys for joining me for an extra long live stream this morning of the Speak the Truth podcast. It's been a hell of a ride, and I've heard that my face freezes kind of weird on the screen. Some of you guys actually told me about that. So before I end up closing out this live session today, I'm just going to put something stupid up there and have this going for you. So now you get to watch stupid Russians making an assault. So let's do that. Let's have a live stream freeze of